How goes it all? Welcome back to Patterson Properties. Hopefully, you guys having a great and exceptional evening. Again, Patterson Properties, we wholesale real estate in the DMV area and the Pennsylvania area along the lines of Philadelphia, Reading, Pennsylvania, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and Allentown, Pennsylvania. All right. So now this was an interesting article that I came across the other day, family. Certain people do not particularly care for the Airbnb business experience anymore when they go on vacations. Now, me, I can take it and I can leave it. Great example. So my last two trips, when I went to Atlanta, Georgia, I stayed in Airbnb just because it was one close to the airport, close to downtown, because I went to an event known as EYL University's Invest Fest. And then number two, it was cheaper than staying at a hotel, even though the venue, EYL University, had contracts with hotels, but still, I wasn't going to be, even if the hotels prices were decent, I still had to pay for parking because it was downtown Atlanta. And then before that, I stayed in a hotel in San Francisco. One, because it was near the hotel, near the airport, because I like to be at least a 20-minute radius of an airport when I go to a major metropolitan area, because you just never know what the traffic is going to be like. And then another thing is the Airbnbs are way more expensive in the city. It's all depending on the city and the state that you go to. The Airbnbs are way more expensive compared to the hotels. Like when I go to Los Angeles, the Airbnbs are much more reasonable, and LAX is in Inglewood, and I like Inglewood, California. And it's not that far from downtown. It's not that far from the highway. It's minutes away from everything, especially the airport. And then usually the Airbnbs are much more reasonably priced than the hotels that are in the LAX El Segundo area, Inglewood area. So it just all depends on the price. Houston, the Airbnbs are great, but usually the best ones are downtown Houston, away from Bush Continental Airport that I go to. So so that's why I usually end up just staying at a hotel, because I like being close to the airport. I pay more, but I'm not spending as much money on gas to go back and forth between the airport and downtown, number one. And two, when I go to the airport to turn the rental car in and get to the airport, it's not that bad of a process. And then because the airport has major construction going on, things take a lot longer. So it all depends on the experience in the area. Like, great example, I could talk about this forever, because if you haven't got the gist, I love to travel. I've been to Seattle, Washington twice. And when I went to Seattle, Washington, I stayed in Airbnb. Great experiences twice. But then when I went to Portland, Oregon for a day, I stayed in a hotel because I'm like, hey, staying in a hotel for one night, not that expensive. And what's the point of getting an Airbnb? If it's just for one night, it's not even feasible for the person who has. They're not going to make that much money. The person who owns the Airbnb. So, and a lot of times they'll have at least a minimum. You got to stay 2 to 3 nights, which I get it. They're running a business. I'm not mad at it. So everything, it's always different. Like when I went to Dallas, me and my mother had to handle some family business out there. Me and my mother and brother, and we stayed in the Airbnb. It was a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom Airbnb. It was an older home, but it was decent, and it was way more cheaper. Everybody had their own space, and it was way more cheaper than trying to get 2 to 3 hotel rooms. So Airbnbs, it's a gift and a curse. Hotels, you have a gift and a curse. Everything, because the beautiful thing about hotels is they're usually close to the airports, and I like being closer to the airport. They have staff there, but the thing is with an Airbnb, it's a majority of the time it's much more spacious. And then especially like when I go to a place, I actually want to be in the community. Like when I went to Toronto, Canada, I stayed in a hotel because it's my first time going to a foreign country by myself. Even though basically Toronto, Canada is like America Part 2. But still, long story short, I wanted to, and then the thing is with staying in hotels, if you sign up, like I'm signing up with IHG, I have the opportunity to utilize points and whatnot for future hotel bookings. Same thing with Marriott. So everything has, to me, pluses and minuses. You book a hotel with an airline credit card, you get airline miles. Plus, if you get cashback rewards. So everything has its pluses and minuses in this life. You just got to be able to, weigh the options and go from there. Because it's not, for me, when it comes to traveling, it's not as black and white. It just depends on the location. But anyways, when I came across this article the other day, certain people do not particularly care for Airbnb business experience anymore. They go on vacation. Isabel Hine, 40 years old, attorney from Queens, New York, New York, our family from there, specifically Queens, who she used to utilize Airbnb since day one. And enjoyed being close to shopping centers, staying in residential neighborhoods, et cetera, and so forth, just like me. When I first utilized Airbnb, it was actually in Manatee, California, which is a suburb within Riverside County, California, about 40 minutes to an hour away from Los Angeles. And it was a great experience. Because I was like, I was thinking about moving out there at the time, and I had the opportunity to actually see what the neighborhoods look like and actually stay in a neighborhood that I actually would love to live in. So that's just one of those things to take into consideration. She recently started noticing high cleaning fees, which a lot of them have, that just seem ridiculous to her. Sometimes the cleaning fees were up to $500, and that's just insane. Then there were rules and requirements like having to clean up after yourself before you leave. She stated that I'm not a slob or anything, but having to wash all the dishes, wipe down the countertops, strip the sheets, and put the towels in the washer, it just felt like too much. And on top of that, she was still getting charged a cleaning fee. And I've stayed in a multitude of Airbnbs, as I said earlier, from the West Coast to the East Coast to down South. But I've never ever been asked to take the sheets off of a bed, strip the sheet, wipe down the countertops. And I wipe down the countertops to make sure, even though they still charge you a cleaning fee, but I'll still wipe down it because I don't like to leave things messy. And I usually put all the dirty clothes within the hamper, and as far as the towels and things of that nature. But that just seems a little bit excessive as far as, those Airbnbs that she's been staying at. But like I said, it just all depends on the place that you're going to stay at. But anyways, like I said, I've just never been asked to do that. Now, having to put dirty clothes in laundry basket and washing the dishes is the norm for me, especially washing dishes. I mean, who wants to leave dirty dishes? Is it going to be sparkling clean? No, I'm just going to make sure that they're actually clean. And 9 times out of 10, I usually end up getting paper plates and cups. I've got to the point now I bring it with me on my trip so that way I don't have to buy it when I go someplace else. It just doesn't make any sense. This year in 2023, I've learned, hey, bring as much as you can so you don't have to buy more stuff when you get to your specific location. Even to the point where I brought my own bananas, oranges, and lemons and whatnot with me. I just didn't do that when I went to Canada because I know it's like you're not supposed to bring fruit, that kind of, at least fruits and whatnot and vegetables to another country. That's why I actually have anything to declare and things of that nature. So you always got to make sure. But I digress. But anyways, the article also stated that when she saw what was happening to the local housing markets, including her home in New York City, where there were more Airbnb listings than available apartments in 2022, and it just wasn't it wasn't just New York. It was in Mexico City. Americans were renting apartments on Airbnbs by Americans at prices that many locals couldn't afford. And I know that has happened in all cities, all around the United States of America, from Dallas to Houston, Miami, Florida, et cetera, and so forth. And the thing you got to take into consideration is you have a lot of neighborhoods that are considered to be Airbnb neighborhoods. And they're just in a lot of places where the rents are just all over the United States of America for the last 10 to 15 years. The rents have been skyrocketing. Home prices have been skyrocketing. So it's been crazy. Okay. Even before the economic collapse, global economic collapse of 2007, 2008 and whatnot, like housing prices were crazy. All right. But with Airbnbs, that's why I understand why certain cities and states have been combating the amount of Airbnbs. Like Dallas, Texas is a great example. Atlanta, Georgia is an example. I mean, like I said, you have places in Miami where they're nothing, like neighborhoods in Miami where they're nothing but Airbnb short-term rentals. Literally whole neighborhoods have been turned into that. And especially given the fact that Miami is a tourist city, people go to Miami to go to the beach and enjoy the Miami nightlife. Okay. So it just makes more sense that for it to happen there, or even in a place like Las Vegas, literally a tourist city where people go to have a good time. That's why it kind of bugs me that they're trying to make Las Vegas more family oriented. To me, that kind of defeats the purpose of having Las Vegas it's supposed to be considered the adult paradise, but I get it. It's people probably have done the corporations there have probably done the numbers and like, hey, we can make more money if we make this more family oriented, and all that good stuff. So it's all about the numbers at the end of the day. But I just leave it at that. But hey, there's certain people with good reason do not like the fact that their neighborhoods have turned into large short-term lease residential properties in the community based off of the increasing property values or the rents to the point where regular working people cannot afford to live in that community anymore, because that's just a thing that's just continuously skyrocketing. She also stated that it is so sad that to think that the locals are being driven out of their own cities by investors buying properties to turn them into Airbnbs. I mean, heck, but it's not even just that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is investors have been buying up apartments and houses in major cities, especially gentrification really started in major cities, especially places like Los Angeles, in New York City and Washington, D.C. back in 2004, 2005. Because those used to be cities that were quote unquote way more affordable to live in compared to now. All right. Like, and if you look at those cities, even in DC, even in Atlanta, even in Dallas, Texas, even in Miami, the homeless population has quadrupled because the way that the cities deal with mental health patients is another story. I'm not going to get into that. But then two, a lot of people just can't afford to freaking live there. I mean, heck, I've seen firsthand in Los Angeles, and because I remember people told me this, it's like this in Hawaii and Pacific Islands, that I've seen firsthand, like it's normal it's kind of got a lot of third world country energy, where it's normal for people who have jobs to live in trailers or live in their car. They get up and go to work every day. They will take a shower at the gym. They'll either pay a one-time fee to go to the gym every day, or they actually have a gym membership, or they'll go to like a local YMCA or something like that where they can go in there for free. And they shower up and then they go to work. So you have a lot of people that have that, living like they're living in a third world country, but they're quote unquote tax-paying citizens. They just can't afford to buy a house, or they just can't afford to rent a place because they don't have the money or the credit shot or all of the above. So this is just things that have been taking place for probably the last almost 20 years between the East Coast and West Coast, and now it's hitting down south, and that's been happening for the last 7 years. This is something to take into consideration, family. But anyways, once you started seeing stories like that, she couldn't. The young lady, Mrs. Hines, couldn't get them out of her head, and she started thinking, "Do I really want to be a part of this incredibly troublesome trend known as Airbnb?" The answer was definitely no for her. And add to that, the increased costs and rules of staying in an Airbnb. She says, "I am officially back to hotels, and I utilize hotels more for just the simple fact that they are close to the airports." She says, "I get air miles from my credit cards plus hotel points as well." Both hotels and Airbnbs have their pros and cons, family. Just like I talked about earlier, hotels have 24/7 staff security depending on the hotel, but Airbnbs have more room a lot of times, and full kitchens. Everything for the most part has its pros and cons in this life. And I utilize Airbnb and I utilize hotels. But this is just something that if there's main reason why I made this video, if there's a growing feeling like this amongst the customers in regards to Airbnb, then you're going to see more people combating and utilizing Airbnb, and therefore the company as a whole could, like I said, could lose. Not saying that they are, lose more profits. Less customers equals less profits. And then we have cities that are combating the amount of Airbnbs that people can own. Atlanta's a great example. I think they put a cap limit on. I don't know if it went through officially, but they was in talks of a cap limit of only 3 short-term leases per person in Atlanta, for future reference. Now, if you already had like 10 or 15 or whatever, then they weren't going to cut down, because to me, that's just being burdensome and killing people's businesses. But that was supposed to be the new law that was instituted in Atlanta. I believe I made a video about this a year or two ago. So we'll see what happens. But on that note, do the great three things: like, share, and subscribe. Have a great day. As I always say, make money moves, or you're going to live broke like a fool. I mean, heck, I even one time stayed in, as you see behind me, Las Vegas, and I stayed in an Airbnb. I stayed in an Airbnb in a place like in this neighborhood. This is actually my dream neighborhood to live in, with houses with the kind of the roofs like this, being surrounded by the mountains, and looking at beautiful palm trees every day. So anyways, as I always say, make money moves so you're gonna live like a fool. Take care.